Y'all probably heard of the Fibonacci sequence or the Fibonacci spiral. It occurs all throughout nature, from seashells to beehives to flowers, even the breeding cycles of rabbits. Apparently, it can even help predict upward and downward trends in the stock market. But how exactly does it work? Well, that's a good question, bro. And what does it got to do with me? Well, we gonna get into it right now.
Had to slow the pace cause I'm murdering y'all. Can make a nigga nervous if it burns the road. Hopping on the track like a metro. Don't go where the feds go. Steady keeping heads low. Changing up the tempo. Rambo, spraying out the Lambo. Crooked, shoot shit. I go with a band score. Rookies. Then I how we cook shit.
Y'all already know who it is. But who the hell is Fibonacci? Well, his real name was Leonardo Fibonacci, and he's known as one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. He lived during the 13th century, and he took a lot of Eastern number systems, particularly acquired from Hindu, Muslim, and North African knowledge, and popularized them in the Western world. He spent his life advancing mathematics for the good of all people, and he's mainly remembered for this number sequence. To quickly understand how the Fibonacci sequence works, all you have to do is start with the number 1, and as you go through the list, add the 2 previous numbers to get the next. Since the first number has nothing prior to it, the first 2 numbers will just end up being 1. But when you add those together, you get 2. Add 2 and 1 to get 3, 3 and 2 to get 5, 5 plus 3 equals 8, 8 plus 5 equals 13, and so on. You can really take this as far as you want. The higher up you go, the closer 2 neighboring numbers are to creating what we call the golden ratio, or phi. We see this golden ratio displaying itself all throughout nature. But in doing a little bit more research for this video, I found that there were people all around the world that have discovered this number sequence way before Fibonacci. People around the world have discovered this phenomenon in different ways. A mathematician named Pingala discovered this number system around 300 BC, and it was known as Mathematicians. I think that's how you pronounce it. Since then, others found that it helped with poetry. Hindus that spoke in Sanskrit would use syllables that could be heard as either 1 beat or 2 beats, meaning that some syllables were shorter, but remarkably the longer ones were always twice as long as the shorter ones. For this reason, a poet may ask how many syllable combinations are possible, given however many beats they need to fill in. Say we need 8 more beats to finish off a poem. How could we find out how many combinations there are? Well, there's the hard way, writing all of them down, starting with the obvious dash, 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 and dot, 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 and working through it to find that there are 34 combinations to fill these 8 beats. Or you could do it the easy way and just use the Fibonacci sequence to figure it out instantly. As you might have guessed, the 8th number in the sequence is the number 34. In theory, we could figure out all the possible syllable combinations given any number of beats. Just count the number of beats through the sequence and you'll find out how many combinations are possible. I make this point to say that oftentimes math is a product of art, and even more so, art is a product of math. I also make this point because although Fibonacci did a lot of great work during his lifetime, he didn't exactly discover this golden ratio any more than Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas. Knowledge of both the Americas and this number sequence were around well before these guys hit the scene. And to be honest, could you even really say that humans discovered it to begin with? Sounds kind of arrogant. They say this Italian dude named Leonardo discovered that most flowers have a certain amount of petals that add up to one of the Fibonacci numbers. But wouldn't that flower first have to discover through evolution that these numbers were most efficient for growth? I'm just messing around. But not really. There are a ton of other mathematical synchronicities here, but I really bring up this number sequence because I feel like the universe really does give us little drops of knowledge through nature, and I believe the Fibonacci spiral in particular is very telling. The spiral works by taking the numbers in the Fibonacci sequence to create squares with the height and length of those numbers and placing them adjacently in the order they come in. So starting with the 2 squares with the height and width of 1, using their connected lines to make a square of 2, and so on. This just so happens to perfectly and seemingly naturally mimic all of the numbers in the Fibonacci sequence while also creating a golden ratio at each level. Then, starting with the smallest squares, we connect the points where the neighboring squares meet to create an infinite spiral. This spiral occurs all throughout nature as well. You can see it in pine cones, seashells, aloe vera, and that aloe vera is good for everything, and seeds of flowers. When you look into it, this actually happens because this is the most efficient pattern for growth. Using a sunflower as an example, if the spiral was any tighter, the lines might intersect at a certain length, limiting how far out a line of seeds can grow. If it were any looser, less ground would be covered in the area of a given disc, and again, less seeds would grow. So to fill in as much space as possible, as far out as possible, the sunflower must abide by the golden ratio. When taking a 34th look at this, I realized there's some deep meaning here. It's all about finding the balance between going with the flow and pursuing a goal with determination. Say you start at the middle of a circle and your goal is to reach the outer edges. Really, we could replace this goal with any other, but for visual purposes, we're going to compare ourselves to a row of seeds. You'd probably think the fastest, most efficient route is a straight line, and you can try to predict how many steps it might take to get there. Meanwhile, life has a funny way of pushing you off course. In nature, there are no straight lines. Even lines that seem straight, like a horizon, or even man-made lines like the edges of your phone or computer that you're watching this on, when you look close enough, aren't straight at all. Depending on how close you look, you might find that everything's just made of these spherical atomic particles anyway. And so straight lines literally do not exist. They're unnatural. And so life tends to pull you in all these directions that you can't possibly predict and throw things your way that you never planned for. At first, it may seem like these things are completely getting in the way of your goal, throwing you way off course. And it may be easy to just go with the flow, forget your plans, and just ride the wave. But if we compare ourselves with these rows of seeds, going with the flow too much just prevents growth. You'd never reach your goals of meeting that outer edge. You must have forward momentum. Like any decent sailor, you have to use the waves and the wind that life hits you with in order to course correct and guide you towards your goal. Think about it. If you do manage to walk that straight path directly towards your goal, you'd completely tire yourself out resisting the path that life tries to show you. And as a consequence, you'd miss out on planting far more seeds along the way that would grow into fruit that you could later reap. A major downside to tunnel vision. And if you get too discouraged by life's unplanned events, you'll never be able to experience your dreams. The Fibonacci spiral is a representation of the perfect balance between the two. It is both the path of least resistance and most abundance. If you got this far through the video, I commend you for sticking through all that math and history at the beginning. You could say it was the unplanned spiral in your day. And if your goal was to look for some type of meaning that you could apply to your life, look, we took the unexpected route to get there. I hope y'all stick around to see what I have in store. Got some big plans, so make sure that you like, subscribe, and share so that we can grow this little channel together. I'll see y'all next week. And remember, don't get too attached to what you think is the perfect plan. And when life sends you down a spiral, just remember to keep moving forward. I'm Jordan Lee, and we out.
Walk with me. Pass all the bullshit and flock with me. Came up on Benjis and Socrates. Kid got no time for apologies. Ain't no one stopping me, hey. Walk with me.
Pressure for Columbus. Combinations. Got a lot of big plans.